Tonight on Insights on PBS Hawaii. Current Mayor Peter Carlisle did not survive the competitive primary, so it now comes down to a contest between two experienced public servants. Though for many voters, it's really a choice between the train and the bus. Now live in our studio, our host, Dan Boylan.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Dan Boylan. The nonpartisan Honolulu mayor's race could have been decided in the August 11th primary had one candidate received more than 50% of the vote. But the overriding factor in this contest is neither party, nor personality, nor past history. It's rail transit. With Mayor Peter Carlisle and former acting mayor Kirk Caldwell splitting the pro-rail vote, Ben Cayetano had hopes of winning the race outright with his anti-rail platform. He came close. With 44% of the primary vote, he ended up shy, however, of his goal. Caldwell took second with 29%, and Peter Carlisle received 24% of the vote, cutting short Carlisle's quest for a full term after winning the special election 2 years ago. Tonight we welcome the two general election candidates to our table in the second of just two televised forums scheduled in this campaign. The first took place last night on KITV. Rail transit may be the most divisive issue, but of course it's not the only thing at stake. A host of other challenges face our next mayor, from housing and homelessness to infrastructure and development to managing the city budget. We plan to cover as many of these issues as we can over the next hour. We hope you will join our conversation by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments for the candidates. The contact information you now see on your screen will be repeated throughout the program. We also want to remind you that Insights is live on both your television and computer screens. It's streaming on our website right now at pbshawaii.org. This program will also be posted online after the broadcast. These political veterans probably need little introduction, but here's a quick refresher on the candidates for Honolulu mayor. Kirk Caldwell was appointed city managing director by Mufi Hanneman and became acting mayor when Hanneman resigned in 2010. Previously, Kirk served as majority leader in the State House, where he represented the Manoa area for 6 years. He spent 2 decades as an attorney in private practice before starting his second career in public service 10 years ago. Kirk continues to practice law. Ben Cayetano is also a lawyer and a writer, and he's the first former Hawaii governor to run for Honolulu mayor. He served as the state's chief executive from 1994 to 2002. Before that, Ben spent 8 years in the lieutenant governor's office and 12 in the state legislature. He came out of retirement to run for mayor in an effort to stop the train. So we're going to have to start there. It's the elephant, if you will, in the room, whether we like it or not all the time, though you must be rather tired, both of you at this point in this. But is this just rail, or is it in any way, shape, or form about your ideas or your experience or your ability to run the city? Kirk, we'll let you go first. We won't bow to the governor, as we probably should. Go ahead.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you for providing this opportunity for the voters to see Ben and I up close and personal for a second time, and I hope that there's going to be more of these going forward. I think this election is much more than about rail. The focus is on rail. But whoever gets elected, if rail gets built, all the other issues that mayors deal with for decades now remain. That's taking care of our sewage, taking care of our water, making sure our garbage gets picked up, making sure our roads are repaved, our parks are maintained, we address the homeless issue. That goes on every single day. And here's the significant thing about it. These things, if they're not done well, if they don't get taken care of, what happens? People get upset pretty quickly. You see the impact immediately. I'm passionate about those issues. I like talking about them. My wife sometimes tells me I'm sick that I like to talk about things like dealing with sewage. But they are. But there are things that I really like to address because you have the immediate impact. And for me, like you mentioned, I came into public service kind of late in life. I want to make a difference right now. And then I want to make a difference in the long term. And that's the legacy projects like rebuilding our sewer infrastructure and our water system. And yes, rail. These 3 things allow us to live more densely in the urban core so we can preserve the outlying ag lands. That's why I'm running. I want to set our city in a new direction for decades to come while dealing with the day-to-day stuff that we all care about so much.
Ben, you don't want rail. We know that, and you've pledged that you'll try to. You want something called fast, but I only heard about it a week ago, namely the plan that you've come up with. Give us a sense of what it is and why you think it will work better than rail.
Well, Dan, one reason I'm running is because I've studied rail for many, many years. Ever since I was in the State House, I was chairman of the Transportation Committee, and Frank Fossey proposed his rail project at that time. One reason I came out of retirement to run for mayor, for one thing, nobody else wanted to do it, was because I see rail as being the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and nobody's noticing it. And I've learned since then that the sewers, the water system, the roads are all in disrepair and need to be upgraded. When I say disrepair, I'm not talking about just ordinary neglect. Our sewers have been really neglected by the last 3 mayoral administrations. The water system, same thing. And so I also understand now better than I did when I was governor, because I wasn't interested in running for mayor, the importance of these services, whether it be water, sewer, or the roads, the basic infrastructure, to the development and the prosperity and the growth of our city. And that's one reason I'm coming out. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's been so much hype about the rail project, and a lot of it, I think, has been a disservice to the people.
Well, tell me about FAST, though, as it's called, flexible, affordable, smart transportation. What is this going to be?
It's a comprehensive approach to transportation. It involves at the center something called bus rapid transit. And bus rapid transit is a fairly new concept to the United States. It started in Curitiba, Brazil, and since then has exploded throughout the world, mainly because it is it's less costly than rail, and also it's flexible, and it's been very, very successful. Basically, the theory of bus rapid transit is to emulate rail in amenities and those kind of things. And if you can imagine a giant Prius driving down a dedicated lane with rubber tires, of course, looks very, very much like a rail car. That's bus rapid transit. If on dedicated lane, it'll beat the train all the time. The rest of our program involves express buses, which circulate in the community, pick up people from, a transit station, and then don't stop. They get on the freeway, they go to the destination, whether it's UH, whether it's Ala Moana, or whether it's downtown someplace. We have 8 of those kind of express bus routes right now, much more than the city had. Then we use technology, traffic light optimization, not so much synchronization, but optimization, because that's what they're using in other cities. We're far behind in that sense. The city is building a traffic light center, and I think that the question is, what kind of system do we use? There are so many simple things and less costly things that can be done that'll ease the flow of traffic. We propose, for example, at 405, I can't remember that number exactly, short underpasses, no more than an 1/8 of a mile long, to keep the flow of traffic moving. And we think those kind of things will help.
And then you have something called a flyover that's going to go, I didn't quite take that. That's a second lane, right?
No, well, at the Nimitz and Middle Street bottleneck,
right.
that flyover actually was designed when I was governor. That flyover is intended to get by that. And I just spoke to the governor tonight. I laid out a proposal to him. I said, the city and the state can get together on this. The city can share costs with the state, and so let's build it. And he's game.
You must have a response to this. I just feel it. I can feel it.
Well, one thing, Dan, we all know, this is not, BRT, bus rapid transit, is nothing new. We had this when Jeremy Harris was mayor. Remember, he was pushing it really, really hard up to his last day in office. The interesting thing is, some of Ben's Truth Squad members were actually suing the mayor to stop that project. Now they believe it's the best thing since sliced bread. The other thing is that the EIS that had to be approved in order for Jeremy to build this project sat on Governor Cayetano's desk as governor for months after months after months, and the governor released it only towards the end of Jeremy's term. And by that point, there was death by 1,000 cuts to BRT, and it died. Now he says it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is not new. It was around a decade ago, and in some ways, Ben had a hand in not allowing it to go forward. You mentioned the flyover. This project was proposed by Governor Waianae when Governor Cayetano was a lieutenant governor. He didn't move it forward. There was huge pushback in the community in Kalihi. It was proposed by, he was then governor for 8 years. He did not build it during his 8 years as governor. And then Governor Lingo pushed it. She did not build it. And you know why? The huge pushback from the community. Now this morning we heard at a forum down in Waikiki that Kalihi's changed a lot and they'd now welcome this flyover. I question whether it's changed enough that they're going to welcome it. I want to talk a little bit more about his tunneling or these underpasses he wants to build along Kapiolani Boulevard, one of our most beautiful boulevards lined by monkey pod trees and monkey pod trees in the medial strip too. Because of the grade that's required to get underneath these streets a crossover for trucks to clear, you have to basically trench or tunnel for long distances right through the heart of our city. The disruption, the impact, and then you're basically building a moat between Mauka and Makai. Not a good thing. And the disruption, the impact that's going to have. Then he talks about bus rapid transit. He mentioned he's going to dedicate certain lanes for buses. That means cars get off those lanes and get forced into more traffic. So instead of addressing traffic congestion, it creates traffic congestion. And here's the point. Do these buses go to Pearl City and Aiea? Do these buses go to the airport? No. Rail does. So it's cutting out incredibly important parts of our community. So I'm troubled by this. And then there's no financing for this any of these projects, none of them. We just heard tonight that somehow the people of the city and county of Honolulu are going to build a flyover on Nimitz that's a state road and a state responsibility. Where's this money coming from? For rail, we have the financing in place. We've collected almost $900 million. We have a commitment that's going to be coming shortly of the $1.55 billion from the federal government. You know, just today, we got a commitment through the Financial Capacity Assessment and Update.
I saw that on the internet, yeah.
Yeah, positive. Now, this is a financial plan. A lot of detail, crunching a lot of numbers, and they're saying it's good to go.
They had a couple qualifications.
They had a couple,
right?
but I mean, overall, they said it's good. We're in the ballpark. Ben's fast plan, there's nothing even near here. Like you mentioned, we're going to be voting, the initial absentee voting, in less than 2 weeks now. And we don't have the financial numbers. It went from 1.1 billion to 1.8 billion to 1.5 billion in less than 5 days. Who knows what it's going to be next week?
Yeah, but I want to ask something, Kirk, about something you said last night on the KITV thing. You were saying that I believe you folks have estimated 1.5 billion, or at least that's what you told Civil Beat, right?
Professor Panos was interviewed by Civil Beat, and he said 1.8 billion. And that's what they printed. But then he called them and he said he made a mistake in his calculations, and it's really 1.5.
Okay, so, but then you said last night that, no, it's going to cost 2.5 billion more than 1.5 billion. So were you saying that you think it'll cost 4 billion?
I think it's going to cost much more than the estimates that they've given. For example,
but you didn't say. You didn't mean
no,
to say 4 billion.
I gave it. No, I did, because what I'm adding, and it's even more than that. See, if we're killing rail, if that happens, there's $900 million that we've collected. That money's going to be, half of it has already been spent and encumbered. The other half is going to be fought over by contractors and others for delayed damages and for canceling contracts. And then you have the $1.55 billion that we would have otherwise got that's going away. That's lost opportunity cost that gets added on. And then I think the true cost of his project, when they actually crunch the numbers through some kind of financial plan, it's going to be much higher. For example, we have 2 bus barns in the city and county of Honolulu. Both of them are at maximum capacity right now with the buses that we have, about 519 buses today. And Ben wants to add a lot more buses for his bus rapid transit. They need to find a facility about 40 acres in size to actually build another bus barn. That's not even been factored into his plan. How much is that going to cost?
But with all due respect, Kirk, to you and to you, if let's say he's right that it's going to be $4 billion, to build the rail is going to cost. You were saying last night, it seemed to me lowballing it, 5.16. You were saying,
and it's been confirmed in this study.
Yeah. Well. But do you really believe that it's going to come in at 5.16? I mean, I've heard as much as 7. Let's take the one.
This is really important, and I do want to address it. I mean,
I don't want to be the. I want Ben in here too.
But no, I'll just say this one point, and then he can. This study was done not by the city and county of Honolulu. Right. The federal government is saying, you want $1.55 billion from us. Before we commit, we're going to get an independent third party who we pay, you don't pay, to crunch your numbers to see if they're good. And they said the numbers are good. And I think it's what any good banker would get before they make a loan. So, you know, people may question whether the number is good. I feel comfortable. I trust this study, as does the federal government, and they said move the full funding grant agreement forward based on this study.
Ben?
Well, first of all, with respect to his numbers about our FAST plan, you know, we started this plan with volunteers. Nobody in my campaign gets paid. We got some pretty smart people. We got some engineers and all of that. It took us 10 months to do this, okay? It took rail 6-7 years and $100 million to design the rail system, and they don't know what's in the downtown segment. They don't have the plans for the downtown segment. And last night I asked Kirk, you know, what will the downtown segment cost? And he doesn't know. And I think it's been truthful because the engineers don't know. Now, with respect to the $1.5 billion full funding agreement, what you have is the FDA talking. It has to be approved by Congress. But the first time that money comes in, the city is going to have to cut a check for $900 million to Ansaldo, if Ansaldo is still solvent, you know, and that's to build the rail cars. So, and then Kirk obviously has not read our FAST plan, because when he talks about the tunnels, the tunnels are short, and they call it an underpass. It's being used all over the world. It's just 2 lanes down the middle of in this case, Kapiolani. And unlike the kind of tunnels that he's thinking about, these things can be done in maybe 4-6 months. They run them anywhere from maybe 15-20 million to the biggest one would be about 70 million. And the idea is to keep the traffic flowing. They're not very deep, and he's wrong when he talks about buses and all of that. The tunnel is not made for buses. It's only for cars. And that's why the depth of the tunnel is fairly short. It's not. It's probably like about 12, maybe 13 feet. That's all.
Ben, how long will it take to build it? The whole system, the whole FAST?
Well, the flyover, of course, will probably take more than 4 years. You know, because whether the FDA or the Federal Highway Administration accepts the old EIS is problematic. So that'll take some time. But we can begin to implement projects, parts of our plan, in 6 months, especially the express buses. Now, rail, I don't know what he's talking about when he talks about rail being serving more areas. Absolutely not. Rail doesn't serve Eva Beach. It doesn't serve Waianae. It really it's not even serving Kapolei at this particular time, nor Mililani, nor Waihawa. Our express buses will serve all of those. And like I said, once the express bus picks people up, and this is not the practice today, get on the freeway, use the zipper lanes, and heli on to its destination in the downtown area. Now, the state is going to build a PM zipper lane, and that will help also for the PM traffic. My administration built the zipper lane that's there right now. And Kirk and all these rail proponents seem to have panicked when they saw our proposal, because they're saying, well, These are some of this is state projects. That's right. But you know what? Rail goes on 3 state highways. Farrington Highway, right down the middle of Farrington Highway, Kamehameha Highway, and Nimitz Highway. And if you think that any disruption by the digging of these short tunnels is going to be, going to harm business, wait until they start the rail project down the middle of Farrington Highway. They start in an empty field because it doesn't show the people how much disruption there's going to be. See, it's going to be nothing compared to this. Our tunnels are nothing compared to what the building of rail will be. Take a look at the Bishop Street station. It's going to pretty much close down Nimitz Highway. You know why? Because the pillars are 8 feet in diameter, and people think that that's it. No, underneath you have this huge foundation, and so you got a 45-foot long foundation. It's about maybe 15, 20 feet wide, and if you're going to put that in place, you got to dig a big hole around it to put in the forms and all of that. And at Bishop Street and Nimitz Highway, there's only 3 lanes on one side.
And as a timid old man driving down the road, I'm bothered by either one of these projects and what it's going to do to the next few years of my driving. I think you have some response to that.
Just a couple points I wanted to hit. The downtown segment that Ben talks about, it has not been put out to bid yet. So when he talks about what is it going to cost, we got to see what the bids come in at. We have a ballpark. I think I have a ballpark figure of what the bids are going to come in at. But here's the point. In the 3 contracts that have been issued so far, the bids have come in below what the city expected because people are hungry for the work. The first 2 resulted in savings of over $200 million because people bid lower and we're still trying to climb out of recession. So when he asked me what it's going to cost, it depends on what people are going to bid. And I hope they bid low so we don't have to pay as much for the downtown segment and an answer be given. Now, the other thing on the tunnels that I talk about, he says they're short. Well, we know when you drive, you don't go like this, Dan, right? You're not driving along underneath the street. You got to start down further, pretty far back and decline, and then come back up. There's requirements for highway safety and for building of these streets, and it has to clear the road above. Now, just tonight we heard it's only for cars. I guess trucks aren't going under it, just cars. The buses and trucks are going to go, what, above on the side lanes? You know, this evolves as we speak, but I can promise you that this is going to be a major construction project going right through the heart of our city. It's not going to be short little digs up and down.
Kirk Caldwell, this is a question
He said, we heard tonight, you just didn't read the whole thing. Had you read the press release and all of that, you would have known that the tunnels were only for cars.
I thought I read it, but I still somehow missed it. I'm not reading as well as I used to either.
I'm not driving as well as I used to. I can't read
so many people drive trucks around this town. I drive a truck. And so does that mean I'm not on that street along with the other folks that have trucks for their surfboards and stuff?
He shows his further ignorance of the project because this statement shows it. The tunnel will let cars continue, but on the surface, if there's a truck and the light turns red, it has to stop. You know, the tunnel is not in lieu of it does not replace the entire street. It's only part of it.
I think we're getting too far into this.
I think so too. I agree.
A question for you, Kirk.
Yes.
Why did the city start work on land that they had not purchased? Why did the city buy land in town and everywhere else, even though the rail route could be disrupted if Iwi was found?
I think the question goes to, for example, the maintenance facility. The reason why we're starting out in West Oahu is because we needed 40 contiguous acres. There was none in town. 40 contiguous acres is more than one city block. And we found a property out there that we're doing an exchange with. And all of this was set up, and there's a process and procedure, and it's moving forward just as was planned. And the FTA is comfortable with it. The city is comfortable with it. Department of Hawaiian Homelands is comfortable with it, and it's going to proceed. These kind of things, huge projects like this that take over a decade to build, have a timeline. Everything doesn't happen immediately, and I don't think there needs to be concern. Everything is in place.
That wasn't the question. The question was why was the city building the pillars on land it doesn't own? Now, that's not the maintenance facility. We're talking about the land that's owned by Horton. Horton, the same company that told the city that they would build affordable housing, as part of their development, and now reneged on it. They said they can't do that because they can't make any money. This is the company that owns the land on which the city is putting those pillars. We're not talking about the maintenance facilities.
I think the question was at the maintenance facility, and if he wouldn't have interrupted me, I would have gone on to the pillars, which is on Horton property. And here's the thing. If Horton doesn't get the approvals, it looks like they are. There is a lawsuit, and Ben testified against granting them their development. But if they are not if they're not able to develop, then the price that we pay is a lower rate than if it's developed. And so we're trying to save taxpayers' money by finding out what the outcome of these lawsuits are. And I think it's only prudent, sound fiscal decision making here.
Ben, rail offers arrivals.
Do you believe that? I mean, it's so illogical. Nobody would do business like that.
I can't tell whether I believe it.
Okay.
I'm trying to get through these questions. I've got a lot of questions here, Ben. Ben, rail offers arrivals every 3 minutes during my commute. Has quick transfers to buses. How frequently can BRT arrive? Have you guys worked on that?
Yeah, BRT will, in some places, BRT will match those headways, and also the express buses, for example, as part of the system, will beat rail all the time.
I have a response to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. One train can take 4 buses of people. One train during rush hour is going to leave every 3 minutes. So at least to get even less than 4 buses of people, you have to have a bus leaving every minute. He talks about headway. How can you move a bus every minute during rush hour, whether it be on the dedicated lane or when you get into town? It's almost an impossibility. There's no way. You already see what happens on King Street with the buses backing up in Hotel Street, and somehow he's going to launch a bus every minute to match what rail's going to do.
I don't think I said any minutes, but okay.
Well, a rail is going to leave every 3 minutes during rush hour, and if one car can carry 4 bus loads to equal that number and move people quickly, that means you have to at least have 1 bus leaving every minute.
You know what the big problem with his analysis is that this happens all the time. The problem with his analysis is that you need to get people on the rail car. And the biggest issue for all rail systems is that none of them have met the ridership forecast that they tell the politicians rail is going to meet. And we have enough examples of that. You could have an aircraft carrier, and if you can't fill it, it doesn't make any difference.
Ben, I was thinking today as I was driving into town, I look up $4.33 cents per gallon. I can't believe that down the road, that's, it may go down for a while, maybe, but I have a feeling that we're going to see higher and higher costs of gasoline. Mm-hmm. At some point, don't we have to have an answer to this that does not use gasoline? I mean, that's one of the appeals of rail to me.
Well, Dan, the buses we have in mind are going to be electric powered. Okay, same like the rail system, and the developments in automobile technology, for example, have been so advanced, it's going to make it harder to get people out of their cars. Bus technology is far advanced in its development, far ahead of rail. The rail system is basically the same one that carried Lincoln to Gettysburg, except at that time it was steam. Now it's electric. It's old technology. Kirk at one of the forums that we had mentioned that it's reliable. Oh, I agree, it's reliable. Paris, he said, has had it for 200 years. Great. We're talking about the future. Future generations deserve future technology, and it's happening so fast right now. Google, for example, has developed a driverless car.
Might be safer than me.
I share your concern about the price of gas, and here's one point I want to make. Is Ben's plan, his fast plan, is basically more cars and more buses. You're building roads, highways, all the kind of things we've done on this island since statehood. Has it relieved traffic? It's invited more cars and more buses and more congestion. So I like what you were saying, that we need to find an alternative to more cars, more buses, more streets, more flyovers, more digging of tunnels. And rail is one of those alternatives. And we are building the first driverless system in our country. So yes, it's proven technology. The DC Metro that started when I was up there working in the 70s and went back in the 90s when it was completed is steel on steel. It's good enough for our nation's capital. BART, steel on steel. Some of the newest systems being built around the world are steel on steel. There's one maglev in China. Everything else is steel on steel. It's proven technology. It's not railway technology. You have rubber tires. It's quieter. It's much more efficient. So let's not scare people into making them think they're going to be riding down some 1880 train system. That's not correct.
Let me give you some numbers from the city's own analysis, okay? According to the city, this rail project will increase transit ridership. By transit ridership, we're talking about the bus and rail. The bus right now carries about 6%. The city's analysis says rail will increase that to 7%. That means paying $5 to $7 billion for a 1% increase in transit ridership. Now, the numbers also show that this rail, the impact on traffic congestion will be about 1.7%. Kirk said 30% in the other night, and I don't know where he got that from because the city certainly is not saying that, and those engineers would be laughed out of town if they made that claim.
One of our callers asked the same question. Where'd you get that 30% number?
From the FEIS.
Where'd you get it?
From the FEIS. And Ben is not correct that it's going to reduce it by just 1%. It's going to have dramatic impact. We talk about this, Ben and I disagree. I say it's going to reduce the number of cars on our roads in 2030 by 40,000 cars, 40,000 less. He'll say, well, that's not true. There's going to be more cars. And I didn't say there's not going to be more cars. In 2030, there's going to be 1.4 million people living on this island, not the 1.2. There will be more cars, but there's going to be 40,000 less cars. And traffic congestion will be less in 2030 with rail than without rail. And that's the important point to make here.
Wait, first of all, Kirk, we're going to be debating at the university's law school on Saturday. From now until then, can you find in the FEIS where it says that rail is going to reduce traffic by 30%, and find also any indication in the FEIS that traffic in 2030 will be better than it is today? The fact of the matter is both the FTA and the city and your own Wayne Yoshioka have agreed that this rail project will not reduce traffic congestion. And Yoshioka said, in fact, in the FEIS, that traffic congestion in the future with rail will be worse than it is without rail, today without rail. Now, you don't dispute that, do you?
No, I do, and I think we'll agree to disagree on the point. I think rail will help reduce traffic congestion. It will not eliminate it.
Is just your feeling?
No.
Show me the...
I told you.
Show me in the EIS where it says that.
Look, I told you it's going to...
I'll give you until Saturday when we meet at the University of
Ben, you
Hawaii.
just don't want to admit the fact that there is going to be less congestion with rail than without rail. There will be more cars, and you want to play...
1.7%.
No way. No way. It's non-1. You show me where it says 1.7%.
Okay, we'll figure it out
Good.
for you.
I'm coming to that debate. What time does that start at the law school? The primary results, and a different question, this is a strategic question. The primary results show whoever picks up Carlisle's votes will win the general. How have each of you earned their support? Frank wants to know. He tweeted this in. You're the other rail guy. You're going to get all of his, he was pro-rail.
I don't want to be presumptuous enough that I'm going to get all of Peter's votes. I'm working hard to get votes from everywhere. And I think if you look at the polls that have been coming in, I've gained additional support since the primary election. I think some have come from Peter's side. I think some have come from Ben's side. And I'm out there working hard every day. I'm sign waving early in the morning and going to forums left and right every night, reaching out to people. And so I think it's pulling votes from everywhere. And I think that's what every good candidate does.
Ben, you're going to get, you need 7%.
Yeah,
right?
well,
6%.
We have a couple of Carlisle's cabinet members joining us. Bill Balfour and Sam Moku. They have committed to join us, and we hope that there will be others who will join us as well, because not everyone who voted for Peter was because of rail. Now, I got 44% or something of the vote. Okay, when you consider that PRP launched a 1.2 million smear campaign against me, I think those folks believe in me and are going to stick with me, that 90,000 plus as we go into the general election. And in the general election, we have a lot of new voters, Republicans, Independents in particular. I think we're going to get them.
Won't a lot of Democrats be coming out for Obama? And Obama's a guy who's supporting things like rail.
Yeah, he is, and I think there'll be, of course, more Democrats. But the Democratic machine pretty much cranked almost all they have in the primary because of the Case-Hirona race. That was a big race, you know, and none of those guys wanted Case to win, and so they cranked the people out.
Another question. How much of Bill and William in Ewa Beach, how much of the island should be developed? Do you plan on developing until there are no open spaces left? I don't think you have the power to do that, but to support it, is there a goal or a limit? There are two big developments that have been passed by the Land Use Commission, if I'm not mistaken, Ho'opili and what is it called?
Koa Ridge.
Koa Ridge up in Kesslinko. So what do we do?
Well, I am a supporter of Ho'opili and Koa Ridge because it's about, for me, building affordable housing for our children and grandchildren. And it's inside the urban buffer zone. As you know, the general plan for the city and county of Honolulu says 60% of all growth is going to happen out in the west side, in the Ewa Plain. And so I believe, just like we all have plans, that we follow the plans that we put in place. Kapolei is on ag land. In 1994, we're still growing sugar out there, Dan, and look at it today. And I think it's a good project that's truly growing into a second city where someday we'll have more jobs out there and people won't have to commute into town. But there's no doubt we have the highest cost of housing almost anywhere in the United States, and it's because of supply and demand. And if we don't build the supply, the price goes up, and it means it just becomes a place for those who can afford to pay an expensive price for a home. So I do support it. But let me say this. I am passionate about ag. I grew up in plantation communities. When I was in the House, I fought to pass an important ag land bill. It took a long time to try to get it passed. In the 11th hour, in one of the sessions, I went to Calvin and said, Speaker, we can get this through this year. And we did. And it now allows farmers to dedicate their land in perpetuity so it does not get converted. And I believe even within the urban buffer, we can do things to preserve some of our prime ag land. But I think we stick to the plan, we develop inside the urban buffer zone, and I fight hard to not have it happen outside of the buffer zone.
Ho'opili and Koa Ridge.
I oppose Ho'opili, and if I had the opportunity, I might have opposed Koa Ridge as well. See, the thing about it, Dan, the difference between Kirk and I, he uses the so-called urban buffer zone as an excuse to vote to reclassify Ho'opili from ag to urban. Now, I don't feel any plan should constrain any politician because times changed, and you should be changing with the times. When you take Ho'opili and put it into urban, and you take Koa Ridge and put that into urban, basically you're wiping out about half of our 4,500 acres of prime ag land. You want to build houses? We got almost 30,000 acres of ag land laying fallow because it doesn't have water. You build houses there.
By the way, that ag land is outside the urban buffer. So now Ben is proposing that we go build houses maybe somewhere between Mililani and Haleiwa. How many people on this island want to see that happen?
Well, let me tell you something about this urban buffer plan. You know, the general plan is basically a plan that was devised by the big landowners, and the city then responds. I don't feel constrained by any plan, you know, because you want to follow a plan as much as possible, but if conditions change, then you make the adjustment accordingly.
Jerry from Kahala and Bob from Kailua, Kirk, both want to know, there are canvassers going around passing out negative information about Ben Cayetano. Do you disavow this activity by PRP?
I don't know about this activity, and it's illegal for me to coordinate any kind of activity between two separate campaigns or an independent expenditure committee. If I instructed them to stop, that's coordination. If I instructed them to proceed, that would be coordination. I'm not involved. I haven't authorized it. I don't approve of it. But in American politics today, people are going out and doing all kinds of things. And think about this. We just found out last week that some of Ben's top 3 people have formed their own super PAC to run their own ads. These are guys who basically had ran his campaign and in less than 2 weeks before voting starts, have now moved over to create this super PAC. You know, there may not be coordination outright, but I have to say, I think there's implied agency here, and it's concerning that there is coordination, in fact, because these guys don't need to talk to Ben to find out what to do. They've been running this campaign up to this point.
I heard a heavy sigh there. Ben, you want to say something?
Yeah,
I
sure,
can tell.
of course. You know, Kirk, the question was, do you disavow what they're doing? Not whether you're coordinated with them or anything like that. Do you disavow the tactics that they're using? That's Dan's question, as I believe, at least from the two people who called. As far as the forming of the super PAC, you know, Dan, PRP has been spending so much money, 1.2 in the primary. Now, altogether, at this particular point, 1.5. They're probably going to spend $2 million just attacking me, and they're attacking me because they can't beat us on the facts on rail. Okay. Now, when you talk about coordination, you know, he can make all the aspersions that he wants. Randy Roth and Cliff Slater, two of the three people that he's talking about, weren't that involved in my campaign. They're plaintiffs with me in our lawsuit. Walter Heen was my one of my chair. He resigned, gave us a formal letter of resignation. These are people of high integrity. Okay, now I hate to mention another news outlet, but Civil Beat has done a story on Kirk and PRP. Apparently, you know, there are scenes in PRP's commercials which suggest that maybe they were taken in, you know, in his law office. Someone pointed out to me that the same photo of Danny Noy is in PRP's commercial and Kirk's commercial. Now, I don't file a complaint about those kind of things, you know, but hey, let's not have cast aspersions on my guys when something like this has happened.
Yeah, and I just want to respond to one part of that. In that same story that Ben cites to, if you go and read the complete story, and Ben knows this because he obviously read the story, it goes on to say that the footage that he's talking about was purchased from my former production company that I'm not using this year, that I used in 2010. They have a right to the production, and that they sold it commercially. There's no coordination, no authorization from me to use that footage, but they have a right to do so.
If money is being used, yeah, this is the thing. You're talking about FAST, you're talking about the rail. Yeah, this guy's got the question that really people want to know, and they want to know about what mayors are going to do about it. If money is being used to improve my roads, why are they still so bad? Specifically, what are you going to do to make the roads better? The potholes that are tearing apart my new car. What are you going to do, Cayetano?
And we estimate, and you know, I have 8 former cabinet members of 4 different mayoral administrations who are advising me and helping me on this. They estimate it'll cost about $1.6 billion to repave the roads. We got the 3rd worst roads in the nation, according to at least one survey. The problem is that the city has been doing this. They've been fixing potholes, but you should be repaving. Because when you fix a pothole, what happens is that when there's a rain, the water gets in, begins to erode
and it's back the next rain.
Right. And so, you know, okay, fix potholes, but we need to do serious repaving. Now, states like Florida, they got a reserve maintenance fund for repaving. We don't have one. As far as I know, it's zero with the city administration. We need to develop those kinds of reserve funds, and we need to commit.
We need to do it soon.
Well, if I get in, we'll do it soon. You know, the funding was at $77 million a year, and with this mayor, it's gone down to like about $55 million. I think it should be at least over $100 million a year.
Kirk Caldwell, you were in the pothole business at one time.
Right.
I think he's right about this. We got to pay.
And when I was the managing director, we expedited $155 million worth of road repaving. It doesn't mean it was all done while I was at the city, but we got it out the door, encumbered, out to bid, and started. And why did I do that? For the very reason this gentleman is calling in, the condition of the roads. But what we found out when we did this, and we started in 2009, is one, bids came in much lower, just like rail, because these companies are hungry for work. There's not a lot of other construction work going on. And two, how do we repave roads? With revenue bonds, 30-year bonds. Their interest rates are through the floor. They're so low. In fact, the city, just about a week and a half ago, issued new bonds for sewers, all-time historic low, never so low in the history of the city and county of Honolulu. So we can get lower bids, have more money because of lower interest rates and do more, and we need to do exactly that, just like when I was at the city, and get ahead of the curve. Ben is right. About $75 million was being used to repave roads. I think we got to ramp it up to about $150 million and get ahead. So we actually improve and repave more of our roads and then slow down a bit once we catch up on the worst roads and then maintain. And how do you do that? Putting slurry seal on roads that have been repaved, maybe there's slight cracks in them before water gets in and potholes are created. And we can do it.
I just want to point out we had an agreement there and on the amount of money, and I was quite struck and hardened by that agreement. Some people want to know what are the plans. You were pointing out that FAST was. Well, we were talking about rail. You said that rail was not going to go out to Waianae, was not going to reach out to the coast. Is there any plans to increase transit surface to the Waianae coast in your plan, or what do you do with the rail if it's not going out there?
Okay, well, with rail, and I hope it is built, that means buses that we use now. If you look at any map of how many buses the city has and where they go, it's a solid green line in the urban core, exactly where rail is going to run, express buses and others. Once rail is built, that relieves buses that can then be redirected to other places. They will go to Waianae, they will go to Kailua, Kaneohe, Laie, and other places on a more regular basis, bringing people into town, sometimes connecting into rail, because bus rail works well together. It's not bus versus rail, it's bus and rail. And the successful rail systems are all integrated with bus. And I think we're going to be seeing that. It actually allows buses to be redeployed, and they will be.
Dan, the problem with extending rail to Waianae or any other place is money, okay? One reason why the city is starting 4 miles from East Kapolei in a vacant field is because they didn't have enough money to start from Kapolei. Now, Mr. Grabowska was asked by Councilwoman Kobayashi, what would it cost to start from Kapolei, okay, to go to UH Manoa, and I think it was to go to Waikiki. And he wrote back and he said, $9 billion. Kirk has come out and said he wants this thing to go to Kailua. He'll have to dig a long tunnel to get rail to Kailua. It's cost. We need to keep these things, in mind and in consideration. This island has a very small tax base. We only have 950,000 people currently. According to the studies, in 2030 it'll be increased by about 200,000. That's a small tax base to support this kind of capital costs.
Someone says, "Dear Ben," Chad says, "Dear Ben," that's not the Chad we know, I don't think. "Dear Ben, where do you want to build new homes? North Shore? Why did you not do anything about traffic when you were governor?" A friend of mine asked that. Be sure you ask him, why didn't he do anything about traffic when he was governor?
I did. Here's what I did. We established the zipper lane, okay? I moved 1,000 state workers to Kapolei, built an office tower, state office tower building there, moved 1,000 state workers there. Got 300 grievances filed against me. But I think you have to remember that among other things, we're looking at building and designing the North-South Road. The governor has a responsibility for highway projects on the neighbor islands, Maui, Big Island. There's a lot on a governor's plate, unlike a mayor who can, who only has to concentrate on this island. So we did things for traffic.
Someone called and said, "Do either of these gentlemen love this city?" I mean, it sounds like all they care about is transportation. I mean, LA guy. You went up there to LA, you deserted, you're treasonous. You went up the mainland. Neither one of you guys love this place.
Of course, look, we both love this place, but I think we got different ideas about what should be done. If you take a look at what the rail project will look like, I'm not sure why anyone would even dream of building a project that runs 35 feet high, and when it gets to the stations, for example, the station by Bishop Street, it'll be 60 feet high, higher than the Dillingham Transportation Building, blocking off the vistas, to the ocean. I love this city enough to fight doing that. That's crazy. We are a city that relies on tourism. People come here not to see another Chicago. They come here to see Honolulu and the beauty that we have here. I don't understand why Kirk doesn't understand this.
Right.
So we have another agreement here, Dan. I think we both do love our city and our island, and we love our state, but we disagree on how to show that love.
How to show that love. We have a song
there. And when I think about it, we've been trying to build rail since the days of Blaisdell. And I wouldn't question that Neil Blaisdell didn't love his city. I wouldn't question that Frank Fosse didn't love this city. I wouldn't question that Mayor Harris didn't love this city.
Tom Gill was a proponent of rail. I remember the first time I ever heard him talk.
They all love this city. And every one of these gentlemen that I talked about were looking at a rail system that was elevated, not tunneled because of the cost. And I think there is a way to do it to lessen the impact, but it's really about a smaller footprint, Dan. We're talking about not massive freeways and highways anymore. We're talking about a 26 wide, 30 feet in the air system that perfect should be underground, which we can't afford. But it's really going to change how we live in the urban core. That is something I wish I could help people realize. And I think that is about love. I think that is about sustainability. I think it's about a smaller footprint, less concrete and cement paved over our Aina, so we live in a more concentrated way in the urban core.
Remember how long after Frank Fosse left his office, after he'd been defeated again and again for other things, we always called him Mayor Fosse. Yes. He identified with that city. Yes. Do either one of you think you're capable of being identified with the city in people's minds the way Frank Fosse was, or for good and ill, the way Mayor Daley was in Chicago? Or
well, I don't think I'll be as colorful as Frank Fosse. I think Frank Fosse probably was our best mayor, even though we were opponents in the gubernatorial election. But let me say about the system that Frank Fosse had in mind. His system would have run right along the freeway. In fact, he wanted to put it down the middle of the freeway.
That's what Gil wanted to do too.
Yeah, so they were thinking about the aesthetics of how this rail proposal would affect, the beauty of the city. Why would the architects of the Honolulu chapter of the American Institute of Architects come out against this? They're usually for rail. They came out against this because of what it's going to do to the character of our city. They basically have said, if it was on ground, they might support it. So I disagree with them. This is poor planning to run it down the waterfront and block our views.
Dan, if I could answer the question too. One, I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain if you look at Fosse's plan, it actually ran down Ala Moana Boulevard by the shopping center in one part of it. So it did come into the city and it went along Ala Moana Boulevard and by Ala Moana Beach Park. But here's the point. You asked the question about, are we capable? The bottom line is, it's not what we say here. It's what we do as a mayor. And I think when you talk about Fosse, why they look at Fosse is what he did, whether it be the bus system, H-Power, the other things that he really set in a different direction for the city. That's how you judge them. And you can't really get an answer to that question until you see how someone performs as mayor and you see what kind of things they do or they don't do. I think I have the capability to do those things.
We had one question where somebody, a Waikiki person, understandably said, either one of these guys is going to guarantee the sewers aren't going to blow on us. What are you guys going to do about the sewers? The sewers are in bad shape all over town, right?
Well, we got the sewer consent decree. We're going to be spending billions to improve our sewers, and it's going to change the condition dramatically, and it needs to be done. This person who's concerned, we had the force main break in Waikiki that dumped raw sewage into the Alawai Canal and then polluted Waikiki Beach. So what we're doing is we're spending over $3 billion to rebuild our collection system and over $1 billion for treatment.
Ben, you got about 20 seconds.
Sorry, we're all the time.
I don't know why he's bragging about a consent decree, because the consent decree is the result of negligence. Them neglecting to keep the sewers maintained and up to speed. You know, it's like a guy who causes an accident, you know, bragging about the settlement that he reached with the victim.
I'm sorry. We're out of time. I wish I had the right to scrub the next hour and a half. Because
do that?
no, I don't have that power.
You got a lot more questions.
We had a lot more questions than we've got on this table, and we apologize very, very much. We have two very experienced guys who, very frankly, I think are terrific human beings. Both of them would make good mayors. But that's Boylan. I've known him a long time. Thank you for watching and calling in. I'm sorry. Next week, Insight's election coverage continues with another mayoral race, this time the one on the Big Island. Current Mayor Billy Kanoy is being challenged by his former boss and mayoral predecessor, Harry Kim. They've both agreed to make the trek to Honolulu during this busy campaign season to share their views on the challenges facing Hawai'i Island. Hope you'll join us then. For Insights on PBS Hawaii, I'm Dan Boylan. Ahui ho.